To honor the life and impact of Debbie Friedman is to honor stories of courage, of rebirth, of renewal, of adding to life when you didn't know how you would do so, to embracing the journey ahead of us, of turning disappointment and tragedy and heartbreak into opportunity and growth and song. It is a story of resilience and inspiration. We are honored this evening to share just such a story by inviting Rob Ross to share his story. We've come to know Rob through Cantor Kathy over these last weeks, and he will share his story with you, so I don't want to take anything away from what he will tell us. But I can simply say that when you are with Rob, you are with someone so full of life and energy and enthusiasm that you can't help but feel that you too can do more than you thought you could a few moments ago. And so it is a great honor and privilege to invite Rob to share his story with us this evening, his story of courage, of life saved, of rebirth, and of resilience.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. My name is Rob Ross. I am so honored to be here with you, singing with you tonight and sharing just a bit of my story with you, my journey. We don't know each other yet, and hopefully we will know each other very, very soon. And I wanted to just tell you a touch about my life and where I've come from and how I've come to this place of being. I've always been an artist and always been a musician. Growing up, my entire family was in the arts in some form or the other. My grandmother is the stepsister of Agnes DeMille, and I heard stories about the theater and was surrounded by music and life and love and the arts. And I started piano at 5 and guitar at 7, and according to my mother, singing from the womb. And in high school, I started off playing football, but very, very quickly discovered theater and discovered the joy that could be entertaining and the feedback and the love of the written word and the music, the glorious, glorious music and the traditions that were in the theater. And I did theater for 2.5 years, and the night before a fateful event in my life, I gave the greatest performance I think I may have ever done. And that next day, Alan Saunders has said, and it's been repeated in song by the great Talmudic scholar John Lennon, that life is what happens to us when we're planning other things. And the day after that theatrical performance, the highlight of my career, up until that point anyway, I went to go swimming with some friends. I'm born and raised in Oakland, California, and we went down to the beach to go swimming, 4 of us. And 2 of us went off to go get some food, and I was left behind with a buddy, and we went to go swimming, and the water was freezing cold, and I dove in, and he dove in next to me, and he happened to take 1 extra step and dove and hit the water, and I took 1 less step and dove and hit the sand. And my forehead hit the bottom, hit the ocean, and I instantly broke my 5th cervical vertebrae right here on my neck into 8 pieces and severed my spinal cord. And I never lost consciousness. I never lost sight of where I was or what was going on. And there I was floating face down in the water, quite confused, but pretty sure that I had taken my last breath. I had taken my last moment on earth. There's no, by the way, bright light. There's no tunnel. There's no theatrical moment. And there's certainly no angels singing. And in that moment of drifting in the water face down, when I thought, this is it, my buddy happened to see me floating there. And just as I started to feel my chest tighten on me, and that feeling of this is it, he found me and he turned me over and he dragged me onto the shore and he saved my life. As luck would have it, of the four of us that went down swimming that day, the one who stayed behind was the one who had lifeguard training and the one who knew how to reposition my neck, how to stabilize it, how to drag me out of the water safely so that my life could be saved. And it was a truly turning, momentous moment that I can look back on now. At that moment, of course, it was filled with confusion and chaos and misunderstanding, but looking back on it now, it was truly a moment of rebirth for me. It was a saving of a life. And I was airlifted to a hospital and spent months and months and surgery after surgery and fusing my neck and working out what being in a wheelchair would be like, and trying to just cope with this piece of myself that had been lost, this huge, massive piece that I thought would never be found again. And when I was in rehab, I was still of the mind that all would be well, that everything would eventually return to normal, that life, normal, what is normal, but that life would somehow be what it was before. And then, coincidentally and thankfully, it was at the end of the summer, and my then girlfriend was headed off to college, and I was staying behind in rehab, and we broke up. And that night, I had my first cry since breaking my neck. This was in May 3rd, 1992, so coming on 30 years now. And I had a good cry, and I had a good moment of, okay, Rob, this is not going to be life as normal. This is something else. And you either embrace it or you don't, and you stop. And you live in the past, and you give up. And for those that know me know that there was no choice to be made in that moment. So I woke up the next day, and I knew that I needed to do something. I needed to find my way back. And how was I going to do that? How was I going to navigate this horrific tragedy, some might say, which became an opportunity. And sometimes through the greatest of tragedies come the greatest of opportunities. And I went into the physical therapy's director's office, and I let him know that I was going to sing again. That was how I was going to find my way back into the world. And he let me know that I'm a quadriplegic, and quadriplegics really don't have the breath control. You'll be in a wheelchair, you're paralyzed from here down, literally. These paws here don't open up, they don't close. There's no muscle movement below my chest. So singing is out of the question. Let's figure out how you can paint. Let's figure out how you do something else. And I let him know that I was going to find my way back through music, and I wanted to give it a go. And I said I will do every single one of the PT and occupational therapy routines that is necessary for me to rebuild my life physically, and then the rest of my time I'm going to learn to sing again. And he agreed, and I did. And I literally and figuratively found my voice again. I found my breath. Breathing is at the core of who we are as people, to be alive, but it's also everything you need to sing. And so in finding my breath, it was almost like finding a renewal, finding myself all over again through breath, through the just the breathing in and the exhalation that would become a note, that would become a measure, that would become a song. And I started to realize that that breath, that moment, each time I took a breath in and either a note or a word or just air came out was a blessing. And it was something to be grateful for. Because on that day, on that cold day, face down in the sand and the surf crashing over me was my last. It should have been. And I was given another chance. And what was I going to do with that chance? And I wanted to do it through song. And I wanted to do it through deed. And I wanted to do it through love. And I wanted to be grateful for every moment I had breath in my lungs and life and family and friends and loved ones around me. And I slowly started to rebuild. And from there, I knew that my acting days were going to be put on hold, if not over. And so I went back to my old high school and I studied with my theater director in high school and became his protege. He became my mentor. And he taught me how to direct. And all the while singing, all the while using that breath that I was so close to not ever having again. And I found my voice. And I found my voice as a director, and I found my voice as a speaker. I gained confidence and met young women and met friends and made contacts and made a life for myself that wasn't supposed to be. And I certainly didn't think that I would ever have again. And something interesting happened along the way there. How, you ask, did this California boy end up in Ohio? Well, I was working in the professional theater and I was studying with some absolutely phenomenal directors and was all set to go to UCLA Theater School, so to stay in California. And they told me, you know, you might want to think about a liberal arts school. You might want to think about taking a look and studying something other than theater, and then coming back to the theater when it's time to study that. So I deferred UCLA, and I stayed on there for a year. And I studied theater, and I looked around at liberal arts schools, and one of the schools I looked at was Oberlin College. And I came out here to Ohio on one of these early April days, which, as you know, could be an absolute blizzard, or it could be glorious, and it was. And perhaps naively thinking that, well, this is just the greatest, most amazing weather I've ever seen in my life. Look at this, everyone's happy, everyone's walking around, and the discourse and the study and the place that was Oberlin became a home, and I moved away from my house, away from everything that I knew, away from every piece of comfort that I had, to come to Oberlin College. I studied theater and dramatic literature. I made friends. I studied and I sang. Again, back to music, back to the breath, back to gratitude, back to that moment that I thought I would never have again. And I worked in the professional theater right up until and right past 9/11. And at that point, I had another reevaluation of my life, and I decided that I would take a year off from the theater, and I would travel the entire country. And I drove the breadth of the United States, 49 states, flew, mind you, to Hawaii, but everything else for an entire year drove the country. Because I knew that time was not always on my side. I was given, even after my accident, I was given about 40 years post-accident to live this life, this second chance at life. And when I came back from that trip, I got a job in the private sector and joined a synagogue up in Beechwood, and was asked, would you join a volunteer committee? And sure, of course, what can I do for you? Well, we're starting up a committee to investigate best practices in Jewish education, and we want you to be on the small 3-person arts committee, and we've got this grant, and we're going to choose among 13 different committees, and you'll be one of the 13, and we'll decide at that point how we would like to spend that grant and how we would like to investigate best practices in Jewish community building and Jewish education. Well, that 3-person committee was chosen and then became a 12-person committee, which became those of us in that committee committing to and creating a vision for how the arts specifically can transform a congregational family. And what I learned at that time was the exact same thing that I learned back in rehab, back in high school, back years and years before, which is that community, togetherness, is something truly, truly special. And in a synagogue environment, something sacred and holy and unique. And that moment of being on that volunteer committee turned into a project that would change my life. And again, and it was, we came up with a vision, like I said, of how the arts can transform a congregation. And then very quickly that vision became an arts festival. And because I had time on my hands, I helped run that arts festival. And they said at the end of it, my goodness, that was great. Do it again next year. And I said, okay, I will do that for you next year, but how about we follow through on this vision? How about we follow through on the way that a congregation can be uplifted and changed and interconnected through the arts, through community, through creative expression? And it started off as a 3-year pilot program, and there was not very much to speak of to begin building on, and a year became 2, became 3, became 12. And we created what's called the Temple Arts Program, and we discovered, and I discovered, a depth and an amazing place that is any synagogue congregational community. Because unlike most places where you can spend your time, we celebrate our highest joys and our deepest sorrows under the same roof in a synagogue. You can't say that for very many places. We celebrate those simchas, we mourn those losses with friends, with family, with loved ones surrounding us. And the building of that community is a sacred trust and a sacred opportunity for something so much higher than ourselves, so much bigger. And I fell in love with that feeling, with that being, with that existence, and with that congregational community. And I dove, again, this time deeper and deeper into that setting. I became a cantorial soloist. I was given the opportunity to lead services and to create services and opportunities for the arts that I never thought I would have again. And again, the breath, and again, the life, and again, the gratitude for all of those things flowed through me within a congregational setting. And I'm often asked, and interestingly enough, was asked by the rabbi, you know, what is it that you have learned along this journey that's unique to you and this experience that you've had? and breaking your neck and being a quadriplegic and being in a wheelchair and everything you've done that others should know. And what I've learned, quite simply, is that I am not unique. We each have our own thing that can either lift us up or have us bury our head in the sand. Whether it be something that's so apparent to the outside world like mine, you can't miss this wheelchair. Sometimes I might run over your toes and you really can't miss it. But you certainly are not going to miss my thing, my challenge, that thing with which I need to make a decision to overcome. But every single one of us, we each have that thing within us that we have to make that choice to either stop and not move on or choose life, choose breath, and choose to overcome. And that is what I've learned more than anything, is that how different all of our challenges and all of our joys and all of our lives are, and yet how much the same we all are. And I've also learned to be grateful for every single moment that I have in this life. May 3rd, 1992 was a day that changed my life forever. And in many, many ways, it was a horrible, horrible day. But it's a day that I celebrate every single year with gusto and with life. I have a huge party with all of my friends, and we get together and we celebrate life. The simplest of things, the thing that we all sometimes take too much for granted. That breath that I was given when I was rolled over in the ocean. That breath that I learned how to take again in rehabilitation. That breath I found when walking into a gorgeous synagogue or singing a note at high holidays. These are all things for us to be grateful for. And we each have those in our lives. And I am truly, truly grateful for the people who surround me with love, without whom I would not be here. I wouldn't know how to smile without. My friends who keep me going and laughing, my family who keeps forever by my side. When I woke up in the hospital bed, there they were, and they've never left. To my now wife, who is the absolute joy, an angel sent to me. And now our daughter, our almost 5-year-old daughter. These are all things that I may not have ever had. May not have ever had the chance to enjoy, to find gratitude within, had I not gone through these experiences. And so may we on this Shabbat, as we celebrate our own journeys, may we find just that briefest of moments, just that briefest of time for ourselves to be grateful for this amazing, complicated, messy, sometimes tragic, but truly, truly glorious life that we all are living. And may we have just one more day to celebrate it again. Shabbat Shalom.